What is up, gentlemen? Today we are talking about home insurance claims, and we have two experts in the field. Alex Leppo, who's been in insurance for, I believe, close to 6 years now, Alex?
Around that time, yeah.
And Jeff Wisdom, who's been a builder, contractor extraordinaire for how long?
Going on 10 years.
10 years. That's awesome, sir. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about the claims process, how to get started, the things that you're going to find as you're going through. And this is specifically on homeowners insurance claims. So Alex, I just had something happen in my home. How do I get the process started for a home insurance claim with my insurance company?
Yeah, first thing you want to do is you want to call your agent. Just, whatever your first point of contact is, make sure you have that number always available. You want to give them a call just to check in, let them know what's happening, and kind of get the feedback of what you should do next. Mitigation is always key, of course, the first thing you want to do. But, before getting to that, you want to know what you're covered for. You want to make sure that your deductible is actually, your damage meets your deductible. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is, make sure that there's not going to be any further damage, and get a reputable contractor out there, get a reputable company out there, have them take a look around, make sure they're going to give you a good understanding of what the damage is, unless it's something major, like obviously, catastrophic loss, then you kind of know we got to get this process started. But if it's something that like a roof claim, you want to make sure that your roof is actually damaged before you get your insurance company out there starting putting claims on your record, which lasts you forever. And the only way to remove that is to go through a long process with the LexisNexis depository to get those taken off. So you want to make sure that you're getting somebody reputable out there, take a look at it, give you an estimate of how much it costs, make sure that they're not up there tearing up shingles just to get that job done, which will be noticed by the adjuster. After that, then if the damage is worth it, if it meets your deductible, you do want to get that process started. Either your agent, we can go ahead and get that process, the claim started for you, or, you can call the company directly and get an adjuster on the line, which will start a claim process. They'll, give you a claim number, and within usually a couple of days, the adjuster will reach out and schedule an inspection on your home. And, the process slowly moves from there. Depending on which company you're with, size of company, that time frame can be adjusted. And if it's a catastrophic loss in the area, that can have a longer effect on time as well.
So if can the customer call you directly and you start that claim, or do you pass them off to the insurance company themselves? What would a customer expect to go through after making that decision? Okay, I need to call my agent.
I'd like to be involved in the claim, especially at the beginning, where I'd like them to call me, and then we're together going to reach out to the claims department and get that claim started. Sometimes the insured will go directly by themselves, and they're pretty much left in the, spinning in the wind a little bit. We're not aware of the claim until it's in process. So I like to be a little bit ahead of that, understanding of what's happening, what the process is going, what the timeline is that they're involved in. We don't want the customer sitting there for a week trying to figure out whether the adjuster is going to reach out to him, whether he has the right number. So we want to make sure that we're involved in that process early on as well.
Wonderful. Jeff, do you have any feedback on that, just starting the claims process that Alex might, or that you want to touch up on?
Yes, I mean, obviously one of the big things that a client needs to understand is, what is my deductible? The other big thing when it comes to repairing your home, dealing with an insurance process, your claims process is going to be sped up significantly if you have a contractor already lined up that's already done the evaluations, that from a professional standpoint is able to determine, yes, you've got a valuable claim. One, the insurance is going to give you a quicker turnaround on the response time with your funding, et cetera, to get the work done. Two, they're going to take you more seriously, and some insurance companies will even, if you come to the table with a contractor already lined up and a contract signed with them, they'll even jump to the end game and release the funds because they know the work's getting done. within a claim process, there's what's called recoverable depreciation, where if you come in without a contractor, or on some claims, if you come in without a contractor, they're going to put recoverable depreciation in, which is money that you as a homeowner are able to claim, but it's also a protection on the insurance company that it doesn't get paid out until proof of work is completed. But if you come to the table with a contract already involved, there's some insurance companies that will release that money ahead of time as well to try and speed the process up, try and help get the contractor working faster, and try and get the claim closed out as fast as possible.
So let's say that we had some, water, well, just hypothetical example, we had some water spillage. And so we know that, from, piping within the ceiling that, we'll get into the, what happened a few years ago with the Texas freeze here shortly, but the, you know, we contact the agent, we get the process started. At what point should we contact a contractor, during that process? Obviously, we need to kind of make sure that there's no additional damage, that we're doing our best to try to mitigate damage. But at what point should we bring that contractor in?
As soon as possible. There's, when you're talking about bigger, more natural disaster type events,
Mhm.
many people are not expecting to happen. And so they're not ready to go, and they contact their insurance because they're more mostly in shock and fear as to what's going on. Their life is turned upside down. And so, they just don't know where to turn.
Yeah.
But the faster you get a contractor involved, the faster you get the contractor in touch with your insurance, the faster the claim can get processed and moving forward towards closeout and getting your work started.
Next step, typically in the process, the insurance carrier is going to ask for some type of mitigation. Jeff, what is mitigation? What should a client be looking for during that process to make sure that they don't, let's say, get rid of any damage before a structural adjuster or even a personal property adjuster comes out? What's your experience on what insurance companies ask for? Alex, I'll give you an option for that as well after Jeff gives his input.
So typically when say one of the big things we experience here in the Houston area is flooding. Typically the insurance is going to pay to repair, replace up to 2 feet above the highest level of water infiltration.
Mhm.
So if you have 6 inches of water in your home, you need to make certain that at least 30 inches is cut out and cleaned out the wall can start airing out and drying out. That's going to help mitigate your damages as fast as possible. 2, the big one when dealing with flood or water infiltration in the state of Texas, mold is a separate item and a separate rider on a homeowner's insurance policy. You never want to say the words mold on an insurance claim, because that's going to throw red flags up on an adjuster's schedule. It's quite okay to say that you're doing this work in an attempt to mitigate microbial growth, because then that's a level of, okay, I'm taking personal responsibility. I'm trying to protect my home, trying to minimize the damage as much as possible, and try to minimize the damage to my health as much as possible. But we as people, we are not licensed mold inspectors. And so when you start talking about mold, that opens up a whole new can of worms and really throws insurance into a quizzy.
Yeah, I have some personal experiences with that. Alex, do you have anything to add on the mitigation aspects that insurance carriers are going to ask for?
Yeah, usually from my experience, what they always say is just take photos. Take photos of any damage before you do anything in the house. Just be extensive with your photos. Don't take like one photo from one little angle, and then just rip up your carpet all over the place. Take as many photos as your phone can fit. Just make sure that from every angle before you do anything, move anything, fix anything. but definitely make sure that you're working on it, because once the adjuster gets out there, he's going to make sure that you actually did something to stop that damage from getting worse, which can affect your claim.
Yeah, I'll just give some brief input on a specific example. So, and again, we'll talk about this here in a second, but a couple years ago, we had almost 80% of the entire Texas have some type of claim or experience with the Texas freeze. A lot of the clients that called in would have essentially a structural adjuster come out first, and then a personal property adjuster come out almost several weeks afterwards. And so, the carriers at that time were asking customers to try to mitigate it. And a lot of them were pipe burst, water damage claims. So a lot of them were asking at that time to try to, get rid of all the personal property and try to just limit as much, additional damage as possible. So what happens, the customers would actually throw out a lot of the personal property and not take any photos, not have an inventory. And the personal property adjuster would come in like 2 weeks later and say, hey, okay, where's all your stuff? And so we had, it wasn't a tremendous amount of customers, but it was a good handful of customers, just the size of the claim, that didn't have an answer for that. And so, my recommendation is, number one, have an inventory of all your personal belongings. Number two, the mitigation, aspects, go with what the adjusters and carriers are asking for, but also have that contractor ready to make sure that, they're partnering with you during that process, so that, you have somebody outside of just yourself that's, witnessing these events. And then just like Alex said, take as many photos as you possibly can, different angles. Once you start throwing away things, once you start, making changes to the scene of the crime, so to speak, then you don't really have a whole lot of backing outside of photos and video. Jeff, would you say that that's a kind of a fair process to run through?
Oh, absolutely. You want to make certain to have everything documented, photographed, itemized. If you've got, if you've got things that you can, pricing on it, note that as well. The more information you can provide to your insurance company, the quicker your claim is going to be settled, the more money you're going to get out of your claim.
All right, let's talk about working with adjusters. And so, standard claims, roof claims versus catastrophe claims can be a little bit different. In some cases they can be the same. So, Alex, what's been your experience with some of the customer feedback from adjusters in the field that you've had? What are some of the goods and bads that you've seen in your time?
Yeah. So the good is always, he gets out there fast. He's nice and pleasant. He works with you, guides you along the way, holds your hand, and answers the phone when you call. That's always, the what you're hoping for. The bad comes in sometimes when there's too much going on and the adjuster has, 20, 30 different people that he has to work with because there's a shortage of, during a big storm, and all of a sudden he's not answering your call. It takes 2 days for him to respond back to you. You're getting irritated. Then he starts getting irritated. And, you have to escalate that to the manager. So, adjusters are people, they do get overworked, and a lot of them are, just good, decent people that want to do jobs. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody that's just in a bad mood. You also get people that are, looking for every little thing just to deny your claim. That's something to be aware of. You want to make sure that it's good to have your contractor around if the adjuster's around as well. That way you can kind of keep them a little bit honest, and he might be talking about things that you don't understand, but your contractor might know. That way he doesn't get over on you on some of these things. They kind of run the gambit sometimes with adjusters. You'll get big storm. They'll have out-of-state adjusters. They'll hire on adjusters to kind of keep up with the shortages of people getting through this stuff. Size of company is also kind of important when it comes to claims. If it's a big company, you'll probably get bigger, quicker service, as opposed to a smaller company that's just not able to get to as many people as fast when it comes to claims.
what can the agent do to help escalate in situations where, adjuster might not be returning a phone call, or, they're kind of nasty with the customer, it's really not a good customer experience with the carrier that they're working with. What can the agent do in that situation?
Yeah. And this is why I kind of like to be involved a little bit early on with this. That way we do know everything that's happening. We can pick up the phone. We can call the adjuster. We can call the manager. We can call underwriting. We can push it along quicker, make them actually do their job the way it's supposed to be done, as opposed to just, going with the flow and sitting back and waiting. You don't want to sit back. You don't want to push people, give them some space to work actually, but you also want to make sure that you're staying on top of them, because some people will cut the line. An adjuster will hurry up a claim with somebody else if he gets busy, and your claim might fall behind if you're just too lackadaisical when it comes to it. So you want to make sure that your agent is involved. You want to make sure that they're the one standing in your corner, and we can do that. It's a little bit different when it's like a 1-800 company or something that you don't have an agent that's directly responsible for your for your well-being.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have some input on working with adjusters, goods and bads, things that personal experiences that you've had?
Yes, so I've had some experience working with adjusters that, during some of the big claims and the big storms, when insurance companies are overwhelmed, they bring adjusters in from out of town. And in fact, I had one adjuster that he flat out told me when we were walking the house together that he was taking a new job in 2 weeks and leaving. His family lived in, this was an issue here in Houston. His family lived in Montana.
Mm.
He had been in Houston at this point for 6 months dealing with this claim issue. And he was tired of it. So he'd taken a new job and given his notice, but his goal was to get everything wrapped up within 2 weeks so the way he could be done. He flat out told me at the house, I'm writing this for maximum policy payout. You should have everything done within 2 weeks. A month goes by and I haven't heard anything. So I contact the desk adjuster, who also hadn't heard anything. Again, no one had the desk adjuster hadn't followed up. I'm trying to not bug them, but at the same time, keep things moving so that way we can get the claimant settled. Lo and behold, the guy didn't finish his work, left for the new job, and just dumped everything.
Yeah.
Well, then they send a new field adjuster out who shows up and only wants to give a third of the policy value when the house has been gutted wall to wall, floor to ceiling. It's like, okay, so having someone that says something versus actually does something is a huge issue. So I'm always, if you get someone to give you a quote, get it in writing.
Yeah. And I have personal experience with that as well. For the last, I won't say like the last 5-6 years, there's, to be honest, it probably would have been beneficial to have an adjuster or someone from the claims team on the call with us, because, even within that community has changed a lot with how carriers have, historically functioned. It used to be they'd have in-house contractors that they send out. Then, I think that got too expensive for some carriers. They started contracting those out. And so you'd have some folks that would come in from out. So especially on large catastrophic claims, they'll have folks come in from out of state in some cases, get the initial work done, or at least start the initial process. And then they would move that over to another adjuster. And exactly as you just said, basically that adjuster take whatever, the first one did and just, do their own, put their own information behind it. So yeah, I had quite a bit of experience with that in the last 6-7 years with certain carriers. So Jeff, working with contractors. So now we've started the claims process. We worked on mitigation. Actually at this point, we probably should already be in contact with a contractor. We've had the adjuster come out, do their assessment. Now we're going back and forth with the insurance company to get some final offers, and basically approaching the contractors to finish to start the work. So what should a customer look for within a contractor? How can they basically mitigate the folks that are coming from out of state during the big claims, versus, some of the contractors that are just up and running. You get a business card, you get information, sometimes it looks all professional. How do they go about making sure that they're dealing with someone reputable that, they can pick up the phone and call and yell at if something goes wrong? How would you approach that as a customer?
So one of the big things that I've always told friends and family when they're having to deal with situations, even before I was in the space of being a contractor, is, and it's even worse in today's world with how easy it is to set up websites, how easy it is to set up, especially Google Voice numbers. Because Google Voice numbers, you pick an area code that's local to where you're doing the work at and have it forwarded to a cell phone. But the hardest thing, especially with a company that's flying in from out of town, trying to make a quick buck, doing some repairs and then running, is getting like vehicles and trailers licensed, because they're not going to go through the time or the effort of changing their license to a local address. So look at the license plates on the vehicles and the equipment that they're bringing in. Are they advertising local numbers but how to have out of state plates? That's a big red flag of someone just trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, and so and then also just a lot of folks that are working from home nowadays. I mean, it used to be, do you have an office here locally? And so that's another thing that's kind of, I mean, even if you're, the most reputable contractor in the city, I mean, some of them don't have physical locations. I mean, a good amount of them do have an office location, but and also just get some references. Do you have, what other projects are you working on in the city? And then do you have someone that I can reach out to? Even just a 5-minute phone call to a reference, I would imagine, goes a long way. Would you say that's correct, Jeff?
Oh, absolutely. A reputable contractor is going to happily hand over phone numbers of clients that they've worked with and had very favorable history with. I personally believe that construction is as much about building relationships as it is about doing the construction. If you have a good relationship with your customer, things are going to go a lot smoother. You're going to have a much better review at the end. You're going to have a much happier customer. I had one customer, things went perfect and smooth all the way through the claim process, getting the money settled out. And then once we were in the process of ordering materials, suddenly her brother shows up and tries to take over managing the project and starts trying to tell her how to tell my client how to run the repair to her house, and trying to change the terms of the contract.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, companies need to be able to, very few companies have cash on hand to front the cost of your materials. Expect to have a request of 30 to 50% upfront for the cost of materials. Now, it's definitely applicable and acceptable to say you want assuming the property is secured when no one's there. It's definitely applicable and acceptable to ask those materials to be delivered to the job site, assuming that they're not going to be in the way of progress, and 2, not going to potentially walk off. From my perspective as a contractor, if I'm holding material like in my office or in my warehouse and they walk off, it's on me. If I'm storing them at the job site and they go missing, that's on the job. It's been delivered, it's out of my preview, it's out of my control, and suddenly it's it's an additional cost for the homeowner because we have to replace those materials we've already ordered. But I'm going to work with the client and make certain that their wishes are met. But at the same time, especially when you already have a contract signed, don't let your family, family is great to, protect you, but don't let them get involved in your money. The money's coming to you from the insurance, is not coming out of your bank account. And ultimately, that is my main goal as a contractor, is to make it to where when you're in a situation of a major disaster, whether it's a freeze or a flood or a fire, my goal is that the only financial impact you have is your deductible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tough when you've kind of outlined a final outcome, a way to proceed. And then you have another, external factor come into the mix and then just reopen that same conversation. It can be, even especially during the claims process, when you're trying to do everything you can to speed it up, that's one factor that can come in and really, prolong the situation, once you have that contractor ready to build and start, doing the things that you originally said. So, I would say as a customer, if you have other decision makers that are in the process with you, bring them in very early on and make sure that they're in those initial conversations. So that's a good point that you brought up. So we've gotten contact with the contractors. We're working with adjusters. The carrier comes back with an unfavorable offer. So if they come back with a good offer, then I think that's pretty much, the rest is pretty much said and done. But if they come back with an unfavorable offer, I would imagine that there's some additional recourse that we can do. Jeff, this is kind of where you come into play and have some experience. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it for that amount. Where do you go from there?
So insurance companies use a program called Exactament for writing their estimate of damages. Exactament is a great tool, but the downside to Exactament is, at best, they update the values that are, it's a cloud-based program, but at best, they update the values of financial impact once a year. As we know, in market conditions, material pricing, labor pricing, it can change on a minute's notice. Labor pricing especially goes through the roof when we have a major catastrophe in the area, and you might have 100 people available to do work, but you've got 100,000 claims. You've got a massive amount of pull with very little coverage to do it. And the big thing there is verifying skilled labor. For me, with my clients, I have what I call an insurance representation contract. What I ask them to do is I have them sign that form. I don't charge them anything up front other than having them pay their deductible. That deductible, I put that money in the bank. I don't touch it. That money goes towards their build back. But at the end of the day, what this insurance representation contract does is I fight their insurance company for adequate compensation without cost, on the sole expectation that my company receives the work to do the build back, because we're putting a lot of time and effort in. I have had some clients where they come in and they have me do all this work, and then suddenly, after they've got money, oh, we're going with someone else because they're cheaper. I'm like, wait, what? I just spent how many hours fighting for you, and you're not even going to provide any financial benefit to me? So it is a tight rope to walk, but it is a benefit that I do, because there are some companies out there that they try to charge you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 up front just to sit down and fight and write paperwork and fight your insurance company.
Yeah.
And that's money that you never see again. So I look at it from a term of, I'm not trying to make money off of just getting you money. I'm trying to get you as much money as possible to put your home back in a condition it was before damage, utilizing current market pricing on materials. And the average I've been getting is about 3 to 4 times the insurance company's initial estimate of damages. I had one project where the initial estimate was about 17,000. We ended up settling at 53,000 with the insurance company. I had another project that was original estimate of 49,000. Unfortunately, they've had to bring attorneys involved, and we still haven't even been able to start the construction to rebuild their home after the freeze. And, this is a year and a half later, but the latest I've gotten is that we're, instead of getting 49,000, we're getting max policy payout of 188,000.
Yeah, and that's crazy, that we're still dealing with claims from that freeze, which brings me kind of the last topic here.
Chris, if I can just chime in real quick.
Oh,
and ask
absolutely.
Jeff a question.
Go ahead.
Jeff, so, on a claim that lasts that long and just keeps dragging, how does that impact, how do the market conditions impact the original price estimate, with labor going up and materials going up in that time frame? How is that going to impact you doing the work? Is it going to be more money that you're going to feel like that you're going to need for it, or is that going to stay kind of solid because you've already discussed the terms?
I've already discussed terms with the client. I'm going to do everything I can to keep the price where it's at. We may have to change. We may have to change manufacturers of materials that are being selected for the build back in order to keep the quality of which the customer is used to, but yet fit within the money that the insurance is allowed. Now, if say over the course of, in this claim, a year and a half goes by and material pricing has just gone to the point that we can't do the same amount of work, then we talk about, do you want to pay the difference because clients can pay whatever they want to for the repairs. But my goal is to, when it's a disaster claim, is to cover the cost of repairs solely with the insurance money.
So let's talk about the Texas freeze. So, we went through Hurricane Harvey, which was, one of the largest natural disaster claims that I've seen in my lifetime. The freeze was up there as well, because that not only was the city of Houston, but it was almost all of Texas that was affected by that. I'll tell you this, the amount of claims that were coming in, for pipe bursts, for water damage within the walls, it was overwhelming. And so the one thing I wanted to say just on that previous question, just to give some input, is that, your agent in cases like CAT claims, these major catastrophe claims, can play a role in escalating and getting more eyeballs on your specific claim. So before you get into, this huge fight, make sure that your agent is having those conversations. If a lot of times they'll have a catastrophe team, catastrophe managers overseeing all this stuff. You have so many working pieces that, the agent can come in and say, hey, look at this specific claim. They're going through this process. This is a very unique situation. You need to look at this and come to a better conclusion than, where the adjuster's at. And this is why. And so this is what the contractor's saying. This is what the customer is saying. And so we need, in some cases, the agent can play a little bit of a role there. Jeff, what was your experience during the Texas freeze? We have about, let's see here, about a minute and a half, and then we got to kind of wrap things up. What was your experience, sir?
Honestly, we saw more claims coming in from the freeze than we did from the hurricanes.
Yeah.
There was physically more people affected, to the tune of about 50% more. People that have, in fact, one project that we had to get attorneys involved in, she was in that home for 25 years and never once had a claim until the freeze.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's kind of, during that process, I did see that's kind of where I saw, the adjusters really spread thin, where you had adjusters coming from outside of the state. They're coming in for, they're actually, the initially the adjusters coming in from out of state were, really well conceived. And then when they left, that was when, the customer experience fell off because they'd handed off to another adjuster, and that adjuster would come in with a completely different story. I saw things where, adjusters would come in, a structural adjuster would come in, have them mitigate the damage, no, recommendations on photos and inventory. And then, a personal property adjuster would come in later on. So it's extremely important, I think, just to recap here, to get your agent involved, make sure that you keep the inventory, make sure you're taking photos, um, and that you're working with a quality contractor along the way as early as you can. Now, let me ask you this: one of the biggest hurdles for clients during that period is you could, in some cases, you couldn't find a contractor to to call, or even kind of list. I had a someone that was working with us saw a contractor leaving a home down their street, and they jumped out in the middle of the street to stop them so that they could, come in and at least give somewhat of a bid, because you couldn't find a plumber or anyone that was available to work with at that time. Did you find yourself pretty spread thin during that period?
Oh, absolutely. I probably, just in the course of 2 to 3 months after the freeze, I probably put 8 to 9,000 miles on my vehicle.
Wow.
And that was just in the city of Houston.
Yeah, that's crazy. So Alex, any input on the freeze? So we have about 60 seconds here. I think what I'll do is, Alex, give you some input, and then Jeff, you can kind of give some things that you have going on, where to find you if a client needs you for a claim. Alex, go ahead and
Yeah, I
start.
mean, I'd like to give more time to Jeff to talk about his company a little bit more. But yeah, what you saw is you saw a lot of pipe breaking, especially from older homes. People that never filed claims, like Jeff said, and all of a sudden they have this claim that out of nowhere, they don't know what to do. And it's important to have somebody in your corner to help you along with it.
Jeff, go ahead and tell us about your company, where they can find you, website, Facebook page, however you want to roll it out.
So my company's name is Planetsmart Development. We are a turnkey general contractor. We are based in Waller, Texas, which is about 25 to 30 miles northwest of Houston on the 290 corridor. We do work all over the city of Houston, ranging from Galveston to Huntsville, Baytown to Sealy. Basically, the major Houston metroplex. Our website is www.planetsmartdevelopment.com. Just spelled out exactly the way it sounds. We are on Facebook. You can find us by searching Planet Smart Development. We're also on Instagram. We've got a page set up with both kingwood.com and woodlandstx.com. And we're also going to be getting marketing and advertising set up within some local neighborhood magazines here pretty soon. But overall, the easiest way to contact us is by phone. That's going to be the fastest way to get a hold of us. Our direct phone number is 936-463-8070.
And Jeff, you do most of your work north of I-10, north side of Houston. Is that correct?
Correct. At the moment, our target market is north of I-10, ranging from Katy around to Kingwood, pushing up into Tomball and Spring and the Woodlands. But anywhere within the Houston metroplex, we're going to serve you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make certain that you as a customer feel like we are part of your family, and make certain that your home is put back to the way it was before the catastrophe has happened. We don't want you to feel frenzied. We don't want you to feel like you've been dealt a raw deal. We are here solely to help you out and get your home put back together.
Wonderful. I am going to put up the information directly after this video, so you'll get to see Jeff's contact information and social media pages, where to find him. So Jeff, stay on for just a quick second. I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day. And again, if you go through a claims process, you need to reach out to anyone. Feel free to use any of us as a resource. Y'all have a wonderful rest of the day and talk to you soon.
Look, everybody.